Good afternoon, I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. US President Donald Trump leaves G7 summit early due to Middle East situation. Israel and Iran attacks continue as Trump tells everyone to evacuate Iranian capital immediately. The second China Central Asia Summit kicks off today in Astana. World leaders have gathered in Canada for the annual G7 summit, with the war in Ukraine and rising tensions in the Middle East dominating the agenda. From trade deals to calls for unity, the high-level talks come at a time of deep geopolitical divides.
World leaders gathered in the Canadian Rockies on Monday for the annual G7 summit, hosted this year in the resort town of Caucasus. Leaders posed for the traditional group photo as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney welcomed global leaders, saying that they have to change with the times to build a better place to live.
We might not agree on absolutely every issue, but where we will cooperate, we will make an enormous difference for our citizens and for the world, and bring the next era of prosperity, I hope, to the benefit of those we serve.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines, President Donald Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer have signed a long-anticipated trade deal with new terms on auto tariffs and aerospace.
This now implements on car tariffs and aerospace, our really important agreement. And so this is a very good day for both of our countries, a real sign of strength. So thank you again, Donald. A really important day for both of us.
Great people, great people.
But Trump also stirred division, announcing he would not support the G7's draft statement on the Iran-Israel conflict, which calls for de-escalation and emphasizes Israel's right to self-defense.
I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something.
Shortly after, the White House confirmed Trump would cut his trip short, returning to Washington, D.C. Monday night to deal with what he called important matters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was hoping to meet Trump at the G7 to discuss further weapons. Speaking from Austria, he praised US military support for helping his country defend itself.
No one wants to imagine how to live and fight for lives without US help.
As the summit moves forward, G7 leaders are working to present a unified front on global conflicts and economic uncertainty, despite deepening divides.
US President Donald Trump is leaving the G7 summit in Canada. He says he needs to rush back to the White House to deal with the situation in the Middle East. It follows days of missile exchanges between Israel and Iran, with no sign of the conflict de-escalating. Mitch McCann has more from Canada.
The last time Canada hosted the G7 summit back in 2018, Donald Trump decided to leave early. Fast forward 7 years to 2025, where the summit is again being held in Canada. Donald Trump has done the same thing, although there are very different circumstances involved this time. The president says he has to get back to the White House to deal with the unfolding and escalating situation in the Middle East that we've seen in recent days between Iran and Israel. The president says it's very important to get back, and it's leading some to speculate what the United States knows or what might be going to happen in the coming hours. So we'll be keeping a close eye on Washington for that. But here at the G7, that situation really overshadowed most of the discussions today. Even on Monday morning, when leaders had arrived to talk to each other hours before, it was revealed that there is a joint declaration the leaders had signed or agreed to, apart from the United States, involving this situation. The document reportedly suggested things like Israel has the right to defend itself, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and that generally called for a de-escalation in tensions. But US officials said Donald Trump wasn't willing to sign that. Later in the day, the president expressed his frustration that Iran hadn't come to the negotiating table and managed to negotiate a deal to wind down its nuclear weapons program. That really frustrated the president. Later in the day again, he posted on Truth Social that everyone should evacuate Tehran, which is the Iranian capital where 10 million people live. So the situation is certainly escalating escalating, and the White House has decided, so much so, he needs to head back to Washington. And that will disappoint many other world leaders who had been hoping to meet with the president tomorrow. Tomorrow's agenda was really all about Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, had been personally invited by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to discuss issues involving a ceasefire or peace negotiations with Russia. Zelensky will not be able to meet Donald Trump now, as well as Zelensky is Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who wanted to discuss the AUKUS deal, which gives Australia nuclear submarines from the United Kingdom and United States. That deal, or that security alliance, has now been reviewed by the Pentagon, so Anthony Albanese won't be able to have that discussion. So there will be many leaders missing out on time with Donald Trump, but the president has decided he needs to get back immediately to Washington. Mitch McCann for A News, Calgary, Canada.
Donald Trump has denied claims that he left the G7 summit to broker ceasefire deals between Israel and Iran, despite the claims made by French President Emmanuel Macron. The U.S. president boarded Air Force One on Monday, leaving the G7 summit in Canada a day early. The White House cited the crisis in the Middle East, but Trump insists his departure had nothing to do with ceasefire talks. His comments came after Macron said Trump proposed a truce between Israel and Iran, a claim the president flatly rejected. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a warning telling everyone to evacuate Tehran immediately as airstrikes continue between Israel and Iran for a fifth day. His message comes as explosions rock the Iranian capital and both sides escalate their rhetoric and military campaigns.
Strikes continue between Israel and Iran for a fifth straight day as U.S. President Donald Trump warns civilians to flee the Iranian capital immediately. He made the announcement on social media, saying everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. He blames Iran for refusing to sign what he called the deal to stop uranium enrichment and insisted once again that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran says its nuclear program is only for peaceful purposes. His comments came just hours after explosions were heard across Tehran, including a strike that hit the headquarters of Iran's state broadcaster.
I don't know how many of my colleagues were martyred. They told us to evacuate the area, but everyone stayed. This is the result of their miscalculation.
Israel confirmed it targeted Iran's media command center. It follows Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vow to end Tehran's nuclear ambitions. During an interview with ABC News, he said everyone did everything possible to reach an agreement.
We had the peace talks. We gave it a chance. We've, clenched our teeth. We did everything we could to enable President Trump to negotiate the desired result.
U.S. officials tell us that the president flatly rejected a plan, an opportunity that the Israelis had to take out the supreme leader. Do you understand his concern? My understanding is his concern is that this would escalate the conflict beyond where it is already.
It's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict.
Israel has received more missile barrages from Iran since Friday as the risk of escalation grows. In Israel, more than 3,000 people have been evacuated from border towns. At least 24 civilians have been confirmed dead since the escalation began last week. Iran has vowed a bigger, more intense retaliation. More than 220 Iranians have reportedly died in the last 5 days, most of them civilians. And as President Trump urges mass evacuations from Tehran, the region watches anxiously, wondering how far this conflict will go.
Let's speak to Enrique Cusero, who is a political analyst, as we focus on the tensions in the Middle East. Enrique, Iran has vowed a new, more powerful wave of missile strikes in the coming hours. How seriously should Israel take this retaliatory threat?
Right now, Israel is having a huge advantage on this conflict. we have to remember that this is not something that Netanyahu just came up with during the last 2-3 days. It's a well-planned strategy, it's a well-planned operation and action that Donald Trump has been trying to restrain, trying to stop in order to get some points forward through a negotiation. Once they've realized that the negotiation couldn't go further, Israel just send its attack. We have to remember as well that past October, the Israeli Air Forces destroyed a big part of the Iranian Air Forces. So, and right now, after several missile Iranian attacks, the remnant of aircraft, Air Force, whatever you want to call it, and missile power in Iran, and I mean, right now, I think it's scarcing. So the longest this conflict will take, the weakest Iran will be. So we're not going to see an incremental retaliation power from Iran. But on the other side, Israel is gonna take new aims and new goals, and I don't see any sort of negotiation or peace talks or accord talks in the next days. I think at some point that Israel is gonna play attrition against Iran. I know for sure that the other Gulf countries don't want the United States involved on this conflict, but for a peace talk and try to conform a peace table on the next days, I think it's going to be hard to see it.
Now, what is your assessment of the U.S. position? Reports suggest that Donald Trump may task either Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff or Vice President J.D. Vance to handle the crisis revolving around Iran. Could such a move shift the dynamics?
As I said before, there was some attempts of negotiation between the United States and Iran in order not to reach this point of conflict. Iran got no other choice that just attend whatever the U.S. team of negotiators that are coming and try to talk with them, because for putting in some way, not being successful in those tries of negotiation between the United States and Iran previous these attacks, there was an implicit green light to Netanyahu in order to attack Iran. So it's pretty obvious that Iranians and the Iranian government has to take in consideration whatever negotiation comes from the United States this time.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Russia says it's ready to mediate between Iran and Israel and has renewed its offer to store Iranian uranium on Russian soil. The proposal, first floated before the latest Israeli strikes, is aimed at easing nuclear tensions. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said the military strikes were escalating the entire crisis to beyond serious levels. He also pushed back on Israel's calls for regime change in Iran, saying the attacks were uniting Iranian society rather than weakening it. At least 15 people have been killed in a massive Russian air assault on Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine.
Ukraine's capital Kyiv was hit by one of the deadliest air assaults since the start of the full-scale war, with at least 14 people killed and 44 injured in a barrage of Russian drones and missiles. According to the Interior Ministry, the attack damaged 27 sites across the city, including homes, schools, and infrastructure. A ballistic missile struck a 9-story apartment block in the Solomiansky district, ripping through the building. Emergency services continue to search for survivors. Among the dead was a 62-year-old US citizen who was killed by shrapnel.
I have never seen anything like this. It is horrible. When people were being taken out of the rubble, when they were taking them out, some were wounded, there were elderly and children. They had cuts on their hands. A little boy from our part of the building had his neck cut, was taken to hospital to have it treated. It was all horrible. I do not know how much they want to torture us. We are innocent civilians. What do they want from us? It is beyond me.
Immediately after the explosion, it was very difficult to breathe. I went to the room next to ours where my mother lives, saw she was alive. I heard neighbours from upstairs talking. They were alive too.
Air raid sirens sounded across Kyiv for over 7 hours. Other parts of Ukraine were also targeted. In the Odessa region, at least 1 person was killed and 13 injured. In Zaporizhzhia, authorities reported at least 4 separate strikes. A region outside Kyiv also came under fire, with 1 injury reported there. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the capital had endured one of the most horrific attacks to date and called for a strong international response. Foreign Ministry official Andriy Sybiha linked the timing of the strike to the ongoing Group of 7 summit and called it a sign of the disrespect to the US. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry claimed it had downed 147 Ukrainian drones overnight, including some near Moscow.
NATO troops are conducting a large drill in Hungary with tens of thousands of soldiers from more than 30 nations. The exercise comes ahead of a NATO summit next week, where countries will be looking to increase their defense spending budget.
More than 10,000 NATO troops from 6 countries are taking part in military exercises in Hungary. The large-scale drill called Sabre Guardian 25 is happening near Budapest and is part of a wider US-led operation called Defender 25. It's to strengthen NATO's rapid response capability across Europe.
Really just to get that interoperability piece. You've got 32 countries in NATO. We have to learn how to fight together. And so having 6 all come here to Hungary and be part of this event, I think was pretty special.
These live-fire exercises with US, Spanish and Hungarian troops simulate how to work together if Russia were to attack NATO's eastern front. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is urging NATO members to pay more towards the defense spending budget. They are calls for an increase to 5% of GDP. However, some countries are not enthusiastic about the rise. A decision will be endorsed at the summit next week at The Hague.
In Haiti, residents are warning of famine as families in the capital struggle to survive on little or no food. Aid groups say the country is on the brink, with rising gang violence and plummeting humanitarian funding making matters worse. The UN says Haiti is now among the top 5 global hunger hotspots. Please note, this report may contain distressing testimonies.
In the streets of Port-au-Prince, survival is the only priority. Food is scarce, prices are high, and for many, the hunger is unbearable.
The famine is hard in Port-au-Prince. I'm about to die, the kids are about to die. I have nobody, I have no one to call. I haven't given them anything yet.
Annette's story is echoed across the city. Families surviving off neighbours' generosity or nothing at all.
First, I don't have a good life. My poor wife used to support us. She got sick. I have no help, no one to call.
With the state absent, people here say they've been left to starve.
We have a government that doesn't care. How will it care for displaced people, for the majority who can't survive? A girl wakes at 8 a.m., doesn't eat till 8 p.m. A young man with no job, he stays hungry.
Conflict is the main driver of crisis. We identify 5 countries or territories of highest concern. This is Sudan, South Sudan, Palestine, Mali, and Haiti. and conflict is driving very high levels of acute food insecurity.
The UN's latest report warns of worsening famine risks driven by violence, climate shocks, and lack of access. In Haiti, more than 8,000 are already facing catastrophic hunger.
We're very concerned about the reduction in humanitarian funding, which will lead to a decline in assistance. That means smaller rations and reduced numbers of people receiving much-needed humanitarian assistance in some of the world's most vulnerable countries.
With aid drying up and violence raging, hunger is now Haiti's deadliest enemy. For many here, hope is in even shorter supply than food.
For a broader look at how the Iranian-Israeli conflict is perceived in the countries of the South Caucasus, we join our Nini Nikolashvili in Tbilisi.
The new active phase of the Iran-Israeli conflict, now on its fourth day, is raising increasingly serious concern across the South Caucasus. Though Georgia does not share a direct border with Iran, the crisis is unfolding just beyond its reach, and its impact could be felt much closer at home. Armenia, the country that has long maintained close and intimate ties with Tehran, condemned what it described as a unilateral Israeli act, warning that this new reality casts fragile regional stability into doubt. Azerbaijan, the strategic partner of Israel, and more recently the country that has made a significant progress in normalizing relations with Iran, with the recent visit of President Pezeshkian to Baku contributing to this, has expressed concern and called for the dialogue. The foreign minister of Azerbaijan emphasized that the country would never allow its territories to be used for attacks against any third country, including Iran. Georgia, just like its neighbors in the region, has maintained cautious and neutrality. Its foreign ministry has expressed serious concern while carefully refraining from taking sides. This reflects Georgia's foreign policy, a delicate balancing act between Western alignment, regional sensitivities, and ongoing security concerns. Yet only days ago, Georgia has appeared to quietly align with the West when it voted in favor of IAEA resolution condemning Iran's lack of cooperation with the nuclear inspectors. Although it did not make headlines in Tbilisi, it is believed to reveal a broader orientation, the one that is not entirely neutral. For present, no clear alliance structure governs this conflict. The countries in the region seem to agree that any renewed instability in the Middle East pose a direct threat to the security of the South Caucasus. It's Nini Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, A-News.
Let's now speak with Onur Erim, president of Dragoman Strategies, to discuss the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel and the implications of this very situation for the South Caucasus. How are the countries in the South Caucasus, including Azerbaijan, handling the Iranian crisis, which is evidently escalating with no imminent likelihood of de-escalation?
Well, there's, of course, a number of problems that are ready to arise, and we're actually seeing impacts in the last 72 hours globally. For example, the shipping prices of the ships went up just because people are thinking that this will raise, a lot of ships may be stuck in Hormuz, and this will affect prices. So we're already seeing the effects, not only regionally, but also, globally. And this will not only affect the neighboring countries, not only affect the regional countries, but if it continues, especially on an escalating manner, this will become a global factor affecting any and everything that it touches.
Now, there has been some inconclusive talk about Azerbaijan being asked to provide a platform for Iran and Israel to talk to each other. And more importantly, how coordinated are the diplomatic actions taken by Azerbaijan and Turkey regarding this ongoing conflict?
I believe this is no time to be picky, which means, what I'm trying to get at is that every country, and Turkey and Azerbaijan, also would be the forefront for a number of reasons in trying to resolve such a conflict, or trying to make a platform available to resolve a conflict is of key importance. So everybody has to do their own, whatever they can on their side. But given the history, given the ethnical and cultural ties of both Turkey and Azerbaijan with Iran, I would not be surprised if these two, brotherly countries, Turkey and Azerbaijan, should be the first and foremost choice for everybody globally to be able to offer some kind of a sustainable ground for resolution of these problems. As I said, not only these two countries, but everybody regionally and internationally has to chip in. This is a extremely huge problem that is waiting to ignite, that could have dire consequences for everyone globally. As I said in the beginning, we're already seeing some very minor effects. But if this continues, and I hope not, but if it escalates, it will be a problem for everybody. So this is no time to say, to go maybe too diplomatic, but act right towards the heart of the problem, the heart of the differences between, and make sure that everybody chips in any way they can to make sure that this problem does not escalate, number one, and is resolved to the best of the capability of the current situation as soon as possible.
Thank you so much for your time. Armenia's economy minister has said that companies are facing difficulties with both imports and exports to Iran and through its territory. He added that some Armenian shipments are stuck at the port of Bandar Abbas and on roads within Iran, expressing hope for a swift restoration of peace. In Astana, Kazakhstan, Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit for the second China Central Asia Summit was marked by key meetings and a cultural event celebrating ties between China and Central Asian countries.
Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Kazakhstan for the second China Central Asia Summit has underscored deepening ties between China and the region. Beyond high-level talks, the visit was marked by a vibrant cultural event in Astana, where over 150 guests from political, business, media and educational circles gathered to celebrate growing people-to-people connections. At the Presidential Center in Astana, participants witnessed performances symbolizing friendship, including a touching rendition of songs in both Kazakh and Chinese. The event, co-hosted by China Media Group and Kazakhstan's presidential TV and radio complex, also saw the announcement of a proposed China Central Asia Media Cooperation Alliance, aimed at fostering shared understanding and strengthening ties in arts, education and the media. Earlier, President Xi and his Kazakh counterpart Kassym-Jomart Tokayev held talks focused on enhancing cooperation in connectivity, green development, high-tech industries and security. The two sides reaffirmed support for each other's core interests, with Tokayev highlighting that Kazakhstan-China relations are entering what he described as a new golden age. The visit comes as part of the China Central Asia Summit, which takes place today in Astana. The summit is expected to conclude with the signing of the Astana Declaration and the Treaty on Eternal Friendship, Good Neighborliness and Cooperation. A total of 58 agreements valued at $24 billion are also set to be signed.
The second meeting of the Business Council Central Asia-China is underway in Astana. Over 1,000 participants from Central Asia and China are taking part. The program includes a plenary session, panel discussions and business meetings. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimozina has more from Astana.
At today's second meeting of the Business Council Central Asia-China held here in Astana ahead of the second summit of Central Asian and Chinese leaders, participants signed 35 memorandums valued at more than $17 billion. These agreements cover key areas such as green energy, infrastructure, logistics, trade, and the establishment of new hubs. Kazakhstan's Minister of Energy, Yerlan Akhenjanov, highlighted the main directions of cooperation with China in the energy sector. This includes joint efforts in renewable energy, gas production, oil refining and petrochemicals. Chinese partners are showing increasing interest in projects involving solar and wind power.
Kazakhstan is a big energy country, as we know, and would like to remain so in the near future. And that's where we need Chinese investments, technologies, new solar and wind farms in Kazakhstan, storage systems. That means new jobs for Kazakhstani, for tens of thousands, new taxes, and increase in wealth of Kazakhstani employees. That's very important. It's mutually beneficial.
Trade between Central Asian countries and China is growing rapidly. In 2024, trade volume reached $95 billion, with nearly half coming from Kazakhstan. Bilateral trade hit a record $44 billion. According to the chairman of the Presidium of the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, e-commerce is becoming a key area, opening new opportunities for the fast exchange of goods and services. Discussions are underway to create a pilot zone for Silk Road e-commerce. The Trans-Caspian International Route is also a focus. Kazakhstan plans to increase cargo volumes on the Middle Corridor to 10 million tons by 2030. Already over 80% of land shipments from China to Europe pass through Kazakhstan. Developing transport infrastructure and international corridors remains a priority.
There is a significant flow of traffic through the Trans-Caspian corridor. Currently, this has attracted the interest of large and medium-sized businesses, and substantial investments in transport infrastructure are being discussed. Unfortunately, we are still experiencing long queues. The government is addressing these issues in cooperation with the business sector. However, without private investments, it is impossible to resolve these problems quickly. So we are working on this very seriously. Transport and logistics remain a separate and important topic.
The Business Council was established in 2023 following the first China-Central Asia Summit. Its goal is to boost business cooperation, promote joint projects and remove trade barriers. And in just a few hours here in Astana, the main event will begin. The summit with leaders from Central Asia and China. Stay with us for more updates. Fariza Kalimurzina, A News in Astana, Kazakhstan.
Well, that's all we have today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.